I just, we have to fix that, you know.
Good to start.
Yeah, we can start. Please.
Well, good morning, everybody. I have 10 o'clock and we do have a quorum today. So I just want to welcome everybody to today's TAC meeting. So the first item is the approval of the TAC agenda for today, March 25th. I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All approved, say aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. Next, we have the approval of the TAC meeting minutes from last month, February 26th. I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, great, thanks. Next, director's report, Chad.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of Technical Advisory Committee. We have few reports. Before, we'd like to introduce our new staff. Kim Neufeld, let me recognize Kim. Most of you know already Kim Neufeld with various of our activities and planning activities. Kim has joined WAMPO a few weeks ago as a multimodal transportation safety planner. Safety was a great initiative by WAMPO with completion of comprehensive safety action plan. We have so much help that we need. For example, advocacy groups on awareness of safety as well as the grant application. So Kim is going to help us. We are all excited. WAMPO staff is very excited about Kim joining. Thank you, Kim. So next few reports we have is, you know, how we had the call for projects for TIP and MTP. So it is the time in the year where project selection committee is going to meet. And then Peter has an update for us. Let's request Peter to provide. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So it's kind of the same information we were going on earlier. There is a total of 102 or 103 projects that will be considered for suballocated funding. And you can kind of see it broken out by jurisdiction there. And so our next steps, moving out here. So these projects have now been reflected in our travel demand model, our new updated model. We are currently working with our consultants firm, PC, and they have scored and ranked these projects based on our adopted evaluation criteria. KDOT staff are currently reviewing near-term projects for eligibility for the WAMPO suballocated funding, which should be finishing up here shortly. And then here in early April, we should have our first meeting with the project selection committee to get that rolling. And then after we have our different recommendations from the PSC, we'll move on to TAC recommendation and TPP vote on those different funding priorities. Any questions for me?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item we have is safe streets and roads for all. We have a couple of updates on that. The demonstration grant that we all won is Dan is coordinating with Federal Highway Administration, and then Kim is helping reviewing what are the needs for implementation grant applications. So we have two updates from Danny and Kim. So let's request Danny Lasher. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. So a quick update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All demonstration grant. So currently WAMPO staff are working with FHWA on identifying eligible projects to spend the demonstration grant funds on, with an emphasis on temporary projects with before and after studies. And also, if you have ideas for a temporary project or before and after study, please share those with us and we can help coordinate with FHWA to determine eligibility for those. Questions on demonstration grant? Okay, then I'll turn it over to Kim.
Good morning. So I'm taking the lead on putting together the grant application for the implementation grant. So we are looking for jurisdictions to provide us potential projects that you might want to include in this grant, especially if they are safety related, if they're maybe in a high crash zone area or street, looking for those infrastructure improvement projects. This application is up to 25 million. So there is quite a bit of room to provide projects from all the jurisdictions who are interested. It is due May 16th. Chad likes to put me under fire right away. So we do need those projects, fairly soon. So if you have any questions or projects that you would like to include, please let me know. Any questions on the implementation grant?
I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
So I saw that there's another item here for hiring consultant.
Yes.
For the 2025 application, right?
Yes, if I'm unsuccessful, then well, we are
So it's
loo-
gonna be both. You're gonna take what you can get for this one by May, is that right?
yes, that's our hope is to see what we can get included for this initial round 2024 funding, but then also look to hire a consultant to put together a large application for 2025.
So to add to that, Gary, consulting firm hiring needs RFP to send out, and this timeline of May 16th came up from Federal Highway Administration in a short notice. We didn't realize that. So we are making the best effort possible within our resources so that it is a learning practice for us this time, so that we know what all are required. We will be more prepared for the next cycle. That's how we're doing.
No, and I appreciate that, and that makes sense, and we've done the same before. Our Vision Zero effort,
Mhm.
is that still ongoing? Because wasn't the goal at one time, and maybe I'm mixing and matching here where I shouldn't, to try to identify areas that probably could be considered for this grant?
Yeah, as far as I've learned, Vision Zero is definitely an effort we're championing still.
Well, I mean, what's the status of that? Is that still active? I mean, there was a point in time where we had several committees going for that, I thought.
The next step for that is to have individual jurisdictions. We will coordinate with individual jurisdictions on how you can have a resolution so that, that cities and jurisdictions have adopted Vision Zero plan is something that we'll coordinate with you on that. But as part of comprehensive safety action plan, that is included in that as well.
Well, right, so I won't belabor it. I can talk to you offline. Does that mean, as part of the comprehensive safety action plan and or Vision Zero, did either one of them suggest proposed improvements? Because I thought that's where we were trying to get. I mean, I know we had a staff committee at one time that included police and traffic and everybody else. Did that ever get anywhere to give us a head start?
Well, this comprehensive safety action plan was is requirement for the implementation grant that Kim is making efforts today. So that is in line with that is relevant and supportive for this implementation grant application. So we are in good shape in terms of application of this. There were no issues at all in terms of proceeding with this implementation grant application. It's a matter of what are the projects that are available within a short time is a challenge for all of us. Identifying those projects is a challenge that Kim is trying to find out what are the best projects that each individual jurisdictions already have identified with data and supportive items. On other items, Gary, I can talk to you more in detail on other items.
That's fine. And I wasn't looking at other items, what you explained, and it's not that jurisdictions may not have something ready. I was certain at one point in time that Vision Zero effort was starting to focus on specific areas already, and I didn't want us to have to start over. That's all I was getting at. But I don't think that I've heard you address that at all, so I'll just
Yeah.
ask you later.
I haven't seen a proposed specific projects. And you do not have to actually have plans already in place for these projects. There is a 5-year window to complete the projects with this funding. Plans, of course, though, are always a bonus. So if you do have projects that have plans or are under design, that's great, but it's not a requirement. So,
Please help Kim in
Yeah.
getting your projects. Go ahead, please, Lynn.
Kim, do you know when, for the implementation portion, when do you have to let the projects by in order to qualify for the 2024?
I have not seen any indication of that in the application specifically. So I think they're still fairly flexible, but I will look and confirm.
That is true. And, once we get the award, Federal Highway Administration will work with WAMPO staff and determine those lead dates and all those timelines once that. One of the other things Kim and I were discussing was, this entire Safe Streets for All grant is getting highly competitive nationwide. Many MPOs are applying. The more we wait, the later years are becoming lesser and lesser funds available and more applications as years go by. Because we are one of the first MPOs who completed this comprehensive safety action plan quicker. That's one of the reasons why we also won the demonstration grant. So on one hand, the next 2025 is long ways, but on the other hand, applying now is helpful because we'll be not waiting for more applications next year. So that's why we are applying this time. Thank you so much, Kim. I think next item we have so many initiatives that occurred in the past couple of years, like plans, comprehensive safety action plans. Similarly, we have several initiatives upcoming, and those are in the forms of requests for proposals and RFPs that we are working with. Several of these we have coordinated with Allison Smith at KDOT as well in making sure it is a unified planning work program. All of these, and some of the initiatives with RFPs will be provided to you by Danny and Peter. So Danny.
So we have 4 upcoming requests for proposals that I want to talk about today. The first is for the Intelligent Transportation Systems, or ITS architecture. For this one, a consultant will be hired to assist in the development of an updated ITS regional architecture and to complete a comprehensive assessment and inventory of the current architecture. Another RFP that will be upcoming would be the travel demand model update for phase 2. This project will secure expert technical support from a consultant to keep the model up to date, train WAMPO staff on its use, provide on-call technical support, generate model outputs as needed, and recommend improvements. Also, an upcoming RFP for the Safe Routes to School planning assistance should be coming soon. WAMPO is seeking a consultant to assist in the development of those Safe Routes to School plans for schools and school districts in the region. And finally, that RFP for the Safe Streets and Roads for All implementation grant, which we spoke about earlier. And this would be for a consultant to help develop a grant application for the 2025 round of funding. In addition, we have 2 RFPs that are either active or under evaluation. Currently, the Financial and Single Audit Services RFP is open. It was issued on March 8th, and it will be active through March 29th. This is to hire a consultant to assist with the completion of our single audit. And then we recently closed the RFP for automatic bicycle and pedestrian counters. And this one was active from February 14th to March 15th, and staff are currently reviewing the received proposals. Any questions on all those RFPs, either upcoming, active, or under evaluation?
See, none.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Wait, sorry, I was slow. I have one question on the bike bed counters. Does that include, and I know we asked this question before, just a matter of procuring those and installing them? Does it talk at all about a service contract, if you will, any type of plan of who would monitor and maintain those?
monitor and maintain that we made sure those questions are part of the selection process, Gary. Kim is leading the selection process and the committee formation. We want to make sure that they have the ability to install. And then we recognize that the staff, both at WAMPO and jurisdiction levels are, we have our own things to take care of. So we needed to make sure that there's a mechanism, either have a consulting outside those vendors in some form. So that's the plan in going ahead with the next steps. Did that answer?
That's fine. I just want to make sure. I know WAMPO doesn't have operating funds specifically for things like that. I just wanted, the thought of it sounds great, right? We've had some questions lately, as a matter of fact, about pedestrian counts in certain areas. And I think it would be nice as we move forward with our bike master plan redo and everything else to have it. But you hit it on the head. We're challenged to maintain what we've got already. So we just want to understand what that looks like first.
Thank you, Gary. Kim, did I miss anything on bike bed counter stuff? Okay.
Thursday, the selection committee's meeting, and we'll make sure that.
Thank you. I think the next item is call for changes for our next amendment on the tip. This is the tip, current tip that is 2023 through 2026. The 4-year tip that let me request Peter to update on this. Thank you, Peter.
Yes, the call for call for changes is open from April 8th to April 19th for the next amendment of the current tip.
Alan, thank you so much. With that, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and thank you, staff, for all your reports. Next, we have the public comments. This is where public is provided an opportunity to speak about any agenda item or non-agenda item. Anybody that would like to speak? Anybody online? No. All right. We'll move on to the action item. We have one action item, which is the Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 7. Peter?
Hello again. So going from the public comment period to, the call for changes to our current amendment that we're presenting today for recommendation. It has gone through a public comment period, and we are here today for TAC recommendation on Amendment 7. So you can check out the full details of the summary that's shown on the screen as either a link in your packet or on the WAMPO website under our tip page. There are 9 projects in Amendment 7 that have requested changes that require TAC TPP approval. That includes 5 requests for new projects to be added to the tip, and there are also 4 projects to be modified in the tip. In addition, there is 1 administrative adjustment that doesn't require official recommendation and approval. That is included in here as well. So to go through this, on the map, we have project B254, US 54, it's a new bridge project. At the US 54 and Eisenhower Airport Parkway interchange, Wichita. Also on the map, we have INT-22401. It's a K15, new intersections at 71st, 47th, and MacArthur, sponsored by the city of Derby and KDOT. The B254-03 is also on the map there. It's the Southwest Prairie Creek Road Bridge over 8 Mile Creek, sponsored by Butler County. And then in addition, I also have several non-mappable projects, including 4 Wichita Transit projects, T1702 by Wichita Transit. They're adding FTA 5307 and local capital funding into fiscal year 2025, 2026, 27, and 28. Also, additional Wichita Transit, they're increasing FTA 5339 and local capital funding in fiscal year 2024 and adding FTA 5339 and local capital funding in fiscal year 25, 26, 27, and 28 as well. The FTA 5310 program, Enhanced Mobility of Seniors, also sponsored by Wichita Transit, is in here. They're increasing the project cost to be paid with local and FTA 5310 funds. And then finally, we have the Wichita Transit operating costs, which they're increasing FTA 5307 and local operations funding in 24 and adding FTA 5307 and local operations funding and again in 25, 26, 27, and 28. And on this page, we have a summary of the changes to local, state, and federal funding changes with this amendment. And typically right after this, I might have a slide that will describe any changes to suballocated funding, but again, similar to Amendment 6, I don't have any changes to the suballocated funding program. And then finally, Amendment 7 meets the requirements. The public comment period and review period has been completed. It's consistent with the current MTP, Move 2040. It's fiscally constrained and adds about $70.9 million in funding for the region. Which brings us to our action items. And they are as follows. Recommend the TPB approve the fiscal year 2023 TIP as presented. Recommend the TPP not approve TIP Amendment 7, or recommend the TPP approve with specific changes. Staff recommends that we approve as presented.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions for Peter on this amendment?
I have one. Peter, is that K-15 project for City of Derby, is that the study or is that K-15 corridor study or is that intersections as well?
That's intersections, not corridor study.
Because KDOT has that corridor study that is just kicking off, so I didn't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves or what the improvements to the intersections are.
I'd have to see the exact improvements, but INT 2401 is intersections as I understand it.
So we'll provide more information to you, Paul, but I know for sure it's not a corridor project yet. It's still kicking off and the project is still starting. And this is a different set of improvements along intersections along K-15. Those details staff will provide to you, Paul.
Sorry, I hated to miss out on an item. That, just out of curiosity, that first bridge in Butler County, I don't know anything about it. It's got nothing to do with Butler County. I'm interested in the fact that that's called a new project and it's got $460,000 in federal funds. Are those funds in the TIP?
The 460,000, you said? It is listed in the TIP. Nick, if I may lean on your,
Well, I mean, and if you don't know right now, I mean, I was just curious to see it labeled as a new project and that it had federal funds listed. I would assume, and I don't know what year that is, but I thought the TIP was all settled right now and just wondered where that came from.
That Butler County project has non-suballocated federal funding on it through KDOT. And for that reason, it had to be entered into our TIP. But so that's why it did not go through the project selection committee or anything like that. And so yeah.
That answers my question. I always forget that everybody else gets those funds except for us. So I was just curious. Thank you. This, that was a joke. The second item, and maybe I just need to ask KDOT about the, we've got earmarked funds to start design to rebuild that entire interchange at 54 and Eisenhower Parkway, and we've submitted raise funds too. So I just want to make sure there wasn't any overlap. I don't know if you happen to know what those projects are.
Those projects are getting ready to bid.
Do you know the location of the bridges, Nick, near the Eisenhower, like bridges number 331, 334, 336, or the interchange?
Let me see here.
Is that
Not-
rehabilitation?
Not off the top of my head.
Let us provide that to Gary.
Well, and I can talk to Kate. It's fine. I just was curious. I mean, if there's things that got to be done, fine, but we're moving forward. I mean, we don't have construction funds yet, but we're trying to get there. And I'd hate to see a big effort if it's going to get undone later.
All right, great. Any other questions? Gary? No?
Mr. Chair, this is Allison Smith at KDOT. I had to take a minute to pull up the Derby project, but those intersections at 71st, 47th, and MacArthur, We're replacing signal poles. So that is the work that's being done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. I would, maybe like to recommend approval for the, TPB to approve the, fiscal year 23-26 amendment, number 7 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
So all in favor of the, to recommend the TPB approve the fiscal year 23-26 tip amendment 7, say aye.
Hi.
All opposed? All right, great, thanks. All right, next we'll move on to discussion and updates. First one is the WAMPO electric vehicle network plan. Peter?
Hello. Unfortunately, Dora, our typical project manager for our EV plan, can't be with us today. So I'm going to go through the update as best I can and try to answer your questions best I can at the end of the presentation. So the electric vehicle network plan outlines the first steps the region can take to support and encourage electric vehicle adoption. So ideally, we develop a comprehensive course of action, provide EV charging infrastructure, and remove barriers to further EV adoption in the WAMPO region efficiently and effectively. The plan intends to serve as a starting point for private and public entities to grow familiarity with the opportunities and challenges with EV vehicles, charging infrastructure, and adoption. The electric vehicle plan supports our Metropolitan Transportation Plan 2050 that we're developing, and it also complements the Charge Up Kansas National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan, or NEVI plan, by advancing the use of EVs to improve air quality and fostering economic development. Our plan development through all of this, we started back in 2023 after some correspondence with KDOT as they were developing their NEVI plan. So our first step in 2023, we went through the National Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure Plan and diligently reviewed the NEVI plan with a focus and emphasis on implications for Kansas. In early, I think, April of 2023, we convened our first steering committee meeting. After that, we gathered public input through multiple pop-up events and online surveys. And then 2023, we collected our data. We did this through collaborations with different agencies. We investigated different traffic patterns, charging infrastructure, potential zones for electrical vehicle adoption. And then in 2024, we assembled all this together and developed our document. And then I'd also like to mention just some of those stakeholders. We engaged with the Wichita engineers, Wichita Transit, Sedgwick County, Keachai, Derby, Valley Center, Kansas Department of Transportation, environmental specialists. We had airport authorities on our steering committee, workforce representatives, and through our planning process, we were able to get quite a few different insights from multiple stakeholders. I believe we even had Evergy involved in there as well. And some more background. I imagine many of you are familiar with these types, but we'll go through them here real quick. So there's several different types of EVs. So we have the battery electric vehicles, which are fully powered by electricity. They have no internal combustion engine, and they produce 0 tailpipe emissions, more efficient compared to hybrid and plug-in hybrids. So BEV, or battery electric vehicles, runs entirely on the battery-powered electric drivetrain. The electricity is stored in a large battery pack, which can be charged and plugged in into electricity. Our hybrid electric vehicles, the vehicle uses both internal combustion, usually petrol engine, and the battery-powered motor train. The petrol engine used to both drive and charge when the battery is empty. These vehicles are not as efficient as fully electric or plug-in hybrids. And then finally, we have the plug-in hybrid vehicles, uses both an internal combustion engine and a battery charge from an external socket. They do have a plug. So this means that the vehicle's battery can be charged with electricity rather than the engine. Plug-in hybrid electric vehicles are more efficient than EVs, but less efficient than battery electric EVs. And then going through our different kinds of charging infrastructure. So level 1, charging an electric car with a level 1 charger does not require any special equipment. You can plug your car into a regular 120 volt AC plug. Though you will not need to plug it into a dedicated circuit, that does not need supply electricity, anything else in your house. Nearly all electric vehicles come with a cord that will fit into your standard 3-prong outlet. With Elavon, though, it takes about an hour of charging time to add. It varies quite a bit between different cars, but 3 to 5 miles of range to your vehicle. Because of the time needed, most people will charge their car this way when they are at home and overnight. Your level 2 chargers are the most common chargers used for daily charging. They are faster than L1, but require special equipment. With L2, you can get up to 60 miles of range per hour of charging, and you can fully charge an empty battery in 4 to 10 hours. This allows you for use in public and work environment, as vehicles are often parked for extended periods of time. Your DC current or direct current fast charging is much faster than L1 and L2, which makes it preferable for drivers on the go. The fast speed enables rapid charging along heavy traffic corridors. Direct current or DC-FC equipment can charge an electric battery up to 80% in just 20 minutes to an hour. I think the graphic actually explains this all quite well. If you look at the pictures on the fast charging, if you notice it just has little stands where you got to go somewhere. You're not going to have DC fast charging at your home. Not feasible there. Level 2 charging can be placed in home and at work facilities. It does require a special circuit, but it can be installed at a residential area. And then, of course, your level 1 charging that we're talking about, you can plug into your wall. Through our study, we identified many barriers to adoption and some industry trends. So we looked at the cost of electric vehicles, knowledge barriers, range anxiety, infrastructure and investment costs, regulatory challenges, land use and zoning issues, charging standardization, grid capacity, and upgrades. And then we also, through our public engagement, we had the steering committee. They convened for multiple meetings, 3 times, addressing a range of topics pertinent to electric vehicle infrastructure development. Initial discussions delved into funding sources for EV charging stations and concerns regarding fire department preparedness for EV fires. Suggestions were made to involve technical experts and utilize existing data on EV usage in Kansas. On subsequent meetings, we featured presentations from industry representatives detailing the projected rise in adoption and strategies for grid integration. And then we had committee deliberations that encompassed demographic analysis, public opinion surveys, regional and political considerations, safety concerns, funding mechanisms. Emphasis was also placed on the need for higher level chargers at strategic locations, like grocery stores, and the involvement of local municipalities in businesses and funding initiatives. Overall, the committee planned to craft a comprehensive plan for the region's needs, addressing various challenges and opportunities for our EV infrastructure implementation. And detailing our public outreach, we conducted surveys spanning from June 25th to August 31st to gather vital insights for the electric vehicle infrastructure plan. The survey had 12 questions, and we did get a remarkable 577 surveys completed by participants. And you can see there the number of staff hours we put on social media and post events. We had about 15 and a half, about 140 hours for total staff time at public tabling events. So we developed our plan, vision, and goals. So number 1, infrastructure expansion and accessibility. Install a comprehensive network of electric vehicle charging stations throughout the Wichita region, ensuring convenient access for residents, visitors, businesses. Prioritize the deployment of charging infrastructure in underserved communities for equitable access to electric mobility. Incentives and support. Work with agencies that are currently incentivizing EV infrastructure. Fleet electrification. Work with local businesses and government agencies to transition their fleets to electric vehicles to reduce emissions and showcase the economic benefits of EV adoption while working on implementing infrastructure at their specific entities. Education and awareness. We launch a public awareness campaign to educate residents on EVs and EV infrastructure. And then create educational programs to go over the safety hazards of that electric vehicles may provoke. And then clean energy integration. We want to work with local utilities to expand renewable energy sources, ensuring that the significant portion of electricity used for EV charging comes from clean, sustainable sources. And then finally, collaboration and partnerships. Collaborate with neighboring regions, state agencies, and federal entities to align efforts, share best practices, and secure additional funding for electrical vehicle infrastructure. And then getting into a bit of the data, how well that little pie chart over there is showing up, but we looked at the different we looked at the different EV ownership rates between Butler, Sumner, and Sedgwick County. So Sedgwick County has about 952 electric vehicles, 2,942 hybrid vehicles, and about 147 electric plug-in hybrid vehicles that are registered. Try to look here. The numbers for Sumner County, we have 10 electric vehicles, 5 electric hybrids, and 75 hybrid vehicles that are registered in Sumner County. And I'm trying to see here, I was trying to read Butler, but I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but we will have those available, and they're available in the electric vehicle plan. So infrastructure deployment, funding sources. So federal programs like Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, or Improvement, CMAQ, Carbon Reduction Program, or CRP, in the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, NEVI, are pivotal in advancing EV infrastructure by offering grants for projects aimed at reducing emissions and enhancing transportation efficiency. Additionally, grants like the Climate Reduction Pollution Grant target pollution reduction efforts are aligning with the goals of EV infrastructure and development. This is also complemented by state level initiatives and federal support agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Energy. And this collective funding landscape fosters the expansion of EV charging networks and promotes a sustainable transportation future. Recommended locations. So identifying strategic locations for EV charging stations is crucial for ensuring widespread accessibility and convenience. So things that were identified during our study: airports, shopping malls, and entertainment venues serve as prime spots, catering to travelers, shoppers, and event attendees who may require charging during extended stays. Additionally, residential areas, corporate campuses, and tourist attractions offer opportunities to support EV owners without personal charging capabilities and enhance visitor experiences. By strategically placing charging stations in these diverse locations, communities can foster EV adoption, promote sustainability, and develop a robust infrastructure to meet the evolving needs of electric vehicle users. We have since placed our EV plan. It is now available for public comment and is open till April 11th. We've already received several comments on the plan. Given how sometimes we don't get too many comments on many of the things we place, it was quite exciting to see that we actually got quite a few people engaged with the plan. It's available at the URL on the page there, just under our plans and projects tab, and go to electric vehicles and you can find it. Okay. All that, I will answer the questions, so any questions you may have to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions?
So I have one. So, this is a great report. What's our action steps? I mean, what's the next plan? Are we going to have grants available to communities to apply for fast charge? Or are we going to use this to apply for? I mean, what are we going to do with it?
My understanding is that it puts us in a position where we would need a plan for, like, applying for the National Electric Vehicle Electrification Plan, which can be used to set up specifically your DC fast chargers on larger corridors. Part of that plan and part of that's in here is identifying locations where we would want to put them. So I know when we were talking about it, it doesn't necessarily sound like we had highly specific areas where we wanted to put such like large DC chargers. But shopping centers, airports, malls, things like that, things that are distinct, not necessarily specific, but tell you an idea of where you would want to place them in your region. And then, yeah, we could use this to help us develop a grant application for some of those larger electrification opportunities.
Now,
Okay.
the state came out with grants, but you had to be, such a distance away from, the highway and those things. Unfortunately, Valley Center was just outside that window, so we couldn't apply for those. But so just kind of seeing, so we have to have this study and then another study to then maybe apply. So, okay.
Peter, this is Allison Smith at KDOT. Can I do a little bit of clarifying?
Certainly, Allison.
Okay, for the NEVI, I'm on the electrification team here at KDOT. For the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, the funding right now can only be used on designated alternative fuel corridors. 54 is one that does run through Wichita, obviously. We don't have any current priorities for in the Wichita area on this current round that we just started a couple weeks ago. So that is one thing that does have to happen. We are looking at some other possible projects that have been submitted through a community charger project that we're funding through the carbon reduction program. So at this point, we're focusing on some other priority areas within the state on those alt fuel corridors. So NEVI is not available right now in Wichita. And you do have to be within 1 mile driving distance of the alt fuel corridor. That is one specification of the federal NEVI program.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? All right, thank you, Peter.
Okay.
All right, next we'll move on to the safe system approach, safer roads. Haley?
Morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay. So this morning I've got our last of the series for the safe system approach that we started a while ago. So safer roads. I'll try to keep it kind of short, but there's a lot of things to cover. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, as I said, this is the last of the presentation. So we've gone through all of the other ones, and we're looking at the safer roads objective, which, overall is going to be, we're looking at those roadway elements that how do we design and compensate for when drivers make mistakes. So mitigating those human mistakes when they do happen and facilitating the safe travel for all, vulnerable road users is the safe system approach there. And, a given roadway or a corridor is neither safe or unsafe, and simply just designing to standards doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to perform safely. So our road design and our operations should be thought of as a continuum where the safe system aligned design or the countermeasures will improve safety performance incrementally over time. Next slide, please. So the safe roads includes all aspects of the road system, not just design. And each aspect is shown on the screen here has a role in accommodating those human mistakes and injury tolerances and reducing the severity of crashes that inevitably will occur. Next slide, please. So in the safe system roadway hierarchy design that I showed you guys in the last presentation, I'm not going to go through everything that I did before, but I did provide a QR code. So hopefully it's a little easier to get to this time. But it shows in there that physical changes to the system are more effective than relying on drivers to just make safe decisions. So if you recall, this hierarchy is a project-based design site assessment tool. And so the application of the countermeasures and the strategies that align with the safe system approach is really dependent on the context, the classification, the location, and the users within the facility. Next slide, please. So a couple of these two slides here are going to be kind of the major goals of the Safer Roads objective. So the first one is obviously just avoiding those crashes. So avoiding crashes can be accomplished by one, separating the users in the space, which means improving or providing physical space to the travelers for a dedicated part of the right-of-way. So typically travelers are moving at different speeds, like pedestrians and bicyclists versus vehicles, or in different directions, and then are separated in space to minimize the conflicts with each other. Additionally, separating the users in time assumes that the users will need to occupy the same physical space on the roadway, but it creates that safer environment by separating the users in time and just reducing the vehicle to vulnerable road user interaction. An example of this is a pedestrian scramble phase in an intersection where the pedestrians have exclusive access to make their crossing maneuvers while vehicle movements are stopped. And then lastly, increasing the attentiveness and awareness will alert users of potential hazards and or the presence of other users. So these techniques can be either vehicle, user, or infrastructure based. A couple examples include improving the visibility between drivers and pedestrians at an intersection, providing street lighting to increase the nighttime visibility for all users, rumble strips that alert the inattentive or drowsy drivers that are leaving their lanes, and rectangular rapid flashing beacons that will warn the drivers of the presence of a crossing pedestrian. Next slide, please. The other goal of this Safer Roads objective is to manage that crash, is the kinetic energy that's involved. So in order to manage that kinetic energy to within the human tolerance levels, we can do this a couple of ways by either managing the speed, the angle of the crash, or that energy distribution. So on the left is an example of a context-sensitive speed limits, like setting lower speed limits in areas where you've had those more pedestrian activities or vulnerable road user traffic. The middle one is just a road designed to eliminate those right angle crashes, like at a roundabout. So we're taking out the element or the opportunity for those higher severity crash types. And then the right image is showing a roadside barrier that's designed to provide an impact that is less severe than what it's shielding. So these also reduce the force that's experienced by the vehicle occupants by spreading the amount of time that impact occurs. And it controls the energy dissipation and its impact on the human body. I was reminded the other day that in a crash, there are 3 different crashes that occur. It's the vehicle, the crash, then it's the occupant inside the vehicle, and then it's also your internal organs inside your body. So you have all of those different impacts that are happening. So if we can spread out that energy distribution, we can control the impact to the human body and keep it within tolerable levels. Next slide, please. I know you all have seen this before, but I'm going to keep reiterating this because at KDOT, we're embracing these proven safety countermeasures, and we're encouraging everybody to look at these as well. As you can see on this slide, these are 25 different countermeasures that contribute specifically to the Safer Roads objective. Next slide, please. Right now, KDOT's in the process of updating our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, or SHSP, to the Kansas Drive to Zero plan. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to give this outline of what it is going to be restructured as. So right now we have current emphasis area teams that have existing strategies, and we're going to remap them into the 5 strategy teams that will replicate the safe system approach. In addition, we'll also have our data, a legislation, and a communication support team for those strategy teams. Next slide, please. This table, I think, is very indicative of the types of strategies that we have currently going on. And so what this is showing you here are the strategies that are in process and they're underway under our current SHSP. And we've restructured them to map under which category they will fall under. So as you can tell, we already have a lot of work going on under the Safer Roads objective, including 2 intersection strategies, 1 for local roads, 2 for pedestrian cyclists, and 2 for roadway departures. Next slide, please. So some of the current KDOT programs that we have that are accessible to Safer Roads, the SS4A, which I know you guys are all familiar about, we talked about earlier, but KDOT is providing that match support for that program to encourage locals to apply for this and getting those safety action plans and implementation and demonstration grants in their communities. We have the Clear Zone Safety Improvement Program, which is a state system focused, but it is focused on improving the area outside of the roadway, so outside of main lines. So we're looking at the driver recovery spaces, specifically in areas where we need right-of-way to make those improvements. We have the Strategic Safety Improvement Program that focuses on projects like intersections, shoulders, lighting, passing lanes, those types of things. We have the state safety projects, which are on system intersections. things like roundabouts, stuff like that. And then of course, our HSIP program, which can be spent on the state and local system. It can be systemic or spot treatment projects, and that is specifically guided by our Drive to Zero plan. The sub bullets under HSIP there just kind of detail kind of a newer structure that we're going towards. And we are going to be spending a lot more focus on the local system. The asterisks that I have on this page are programs that are specifically focused and only spent on the local system, but I will say that HSIP is eligible for both. So we're working on setting up some processes to make the local system more eligible, more available for federal dollars. Next slide, please. So as you saw under there, we had the vulnerable road user category under HSIP. So one of the tools that we're going to be using for that comes out of our vulnerable road user safety assessment, or the VRUSA, as we call it. Out of this tool and out of that assessment, we're producing the tools for us to help identify our high risk and our high injury networks for vulnerable road users, so that we can use that within our HSIP program or in coordination with some of our existing multimodal programs. Currently, right now, for the next couple of fiscal years, we're using that VRU category on HSIP to provide some of the matching support for our transportation alternative projects, and they will be scored based on their presence on either the high risk or the high injury VRU network. Next slide, please. So some of the upcoming programs that we have, and the ones that I'm looking forward to, because I feel like this is where we're going to get more bang for our buck type of thing, is those high risk locations that we can address with low cost countermeasures. So as I showed a few slides ago, there's the strategies that are falling under the safer roads category. And a couple of these are horizontal curve program that will systemically look at our horizontal curves on the state system. And then we also have two for intersections. We're looking at signal controlled intersections and stop controlled intersections, and that could be on the state or local system. These systemic projects or programs could be in the form of like a materials purchase or other proven countermeasures like the signing or pavement marking improvements, turn lanes, retroreflective materials, those types of things. But there's a lot going on with some of those programs. And really the part of that too that we're working on is the systemic screening of really finding those high risk areas and not necessarily chasing the crashes, but looking at where crashes can and inevitably probably will occur, and then addressing those proactively. So next slide, please. This is my plug slide, of course, of the Drive to Zero plan update that I've shown you before. If you are interested in being a part of any of those strategy teams, as I showed before, any one of those 5 that fall into the elements, please let me know and we'll get you added to those teams. Or you can always, of course, be a friend of the DTZ Coalition and just listen in on what we've got going on with our strategic highway safety plan update. As always, I'm available for questions, and on the next slide, my contact information is provided for you all. I will also say one thing that wasn't on there is we do have our transportation safety conference upcoming in April. It's April 16th through 17th in Topeka, if any of you would like to attend there. So that is all I have for you guys today, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Haley. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I appreciate your presentation.
Of course, thank you.
All right, next we have C, which is quarterly transit updates. Raven?
So good morning. Oh, good morning, everyone. Not a whole lot going on for transit this first quarter, as we are in our triennial year. So we spent the first quarter making sure we're getting all the information that we needed to the FTA. The consultant has what they need, so they're kind of reviewing our documents. So in June, we'll have a visit from that consultant to hopefully pass without any findings. But a couple of quick things is we were nearly at 1.2 million rides for 2023, which was exciting for us because that almost put us right at pre-COVID numbers. And we want to attribute that to ongoing partnerships and ridership programs that we kind of developed through COVID to kind of increase some of that ridership, getting the word out and the importance of transit. The hub, our multimodal facility, that construction RFP should be hitting the streets in the coming weeks. And then for the system redesign, in February, we had 2 stakeholder workshops, which we had pretty good attendance for all of that. We did a kind of a planning activity, so it was kind of fun to see all the attendees getting to develop their own transit system with the budgeting constraints and making sure that they're meeting the needs of the community. So that was very entertaining kind of to watch. The onboard surveys, along with the online surveys, we had nearly 1,000 surveys that were completed. So that was exciting as well to have such a great response for that. The consultants are in process of completing the state of the system. So we do have a draft. So staff is taking a look at that, seeing if we need to make any edits before the actual final copy goes live. And of course, you can always follow that on wichitatransitplan.com. They are also in process of taking some of that feedback from the surveys, from the stakeholders workshops, and a couple of other meetings, and developing concepts, which should be available in April. So towards the end of April into May, those concepts will be made public. We'll be entering our second round of community engagement. So you'll see us kind of at a lot of different events. Of course, there'll be another online survey. So we'll appreciate everyone's participation with that as well. And tomorrow we're actually going to do a visioning workshop with staff. So any questions?
All right, thank you, Raven. All right, next we have other business. Is there any other business? None? So next, that takes us to adjournment. We'd like to adjourn today's meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye. All right. Thank you, everybody.